Hi friends, Siddharth again. In this video, I'll share my experiences with typical cybersecurity related job interviews in Germany. They are never going to ask you about the 7 layers of OSI. Trust me, it is a fact. What they are going to ask you, how do you implement these layers in a practical scenario? Stay tuned, I'll explain more details about cybersecurity interviews. So friends, in India, I have given close to 100 plus interviews regarding cybersecurity jobs, and in Germany, I had given close to 70 to 80. But trust me, success ratio in Germany was far more than in India. I was literally disappointed because of rejections within India, but of course, rejections are definitely there in Germany as well. But the way they ask you question, the approach of the interviewer is entirely different as in India. So friends, as a nutshell, these interviews in Germany are more like scenario based. That is, how will you react in a particular situation or in a scenario. In India, what I have understood is they are more into technical aspects. Like they might be asking you what is the difference between a Trojan and a malware, for example. However, in Germany, they will be more interested in understanding or knowing your approach. How will you handle a Trojan attack or a malware attack? These are quite basic differences between Indian and German interviews, and I am literally very happy to share that German interviews I find are easier to crack in case if you have real practical examples or experience. So the first question that is most likely they are going to ask is, tell us about the typical situations wherein you have worked and what were the most challenging situations in cybersecurity. So friends, in such questions, they want to understand how do you react in adverse scenarios. In case if all of a sudden there is a ransomware attack in your organization, then what are the first steps that you are going to do? So your answer should be something like you have to follow the incident response procedure. You can also share some experience regarding creation of this incident response here, because you know, the German interviewers would like to understand your reaction in such scenarios. What are the first actions that you will be taking? So answers like, yeah, I'll be following the incident response procedure and update the higher management immediately. I'll immediately talk to all the concerned people. Such answers are the best ones for such question. Now, as I earlier said, they are never going to ask you about the layers of OSI setup or something like that. However, they would definitely like to ask you, how do you configure a newly received firewall? For example, they might say that let's say you are giving an interview for a cybersecurity analyst, and they will say like, if we receive a new firewall or if we have a requirement to set up a new firewall, and you just received a box pack firewall by the service provider, what are the first steps that you are going to do? Now, in such questions, they expect you to have hands-on experience with such scenarios. In case if you have really set up firewall anytime in the past, then most likely you will start with saying that I'll be setting up zones first of all. I'll be understanding what are the typical zones like DMZ or maybe the production environment or any other environment or the database zone. So such zone concept they are going to expect from you in such questions. Another typical question, which is probably the headlines all the times in Germany since 2017, is how are you going to protect your organization from a ransomware attack? So such questions again are scenario based. They want to listen that you are going to speak out something about network segmentation, that is VLAN, and maybe like antivirus or maybe something related with this. So please brush up information about segmentation, that is network segmentation is most important aspect in any organization these days. Apart from that, there is one organization that I always insist, please have a look at my other videos also wherein I have insisted upon this organization, and this organization is known as BSI. Now BSI is something like, it's a government organization first of all, and it is like CERT in India, that is, I don't remember the full form of CERT, but it is like the government governing body for information technology. Full form of BSI is very complicated. Still, I would like to tell you, it is Bundesamt für Sicherheit in der Informationstechnologie. That means it is the Federal Office for IT security or something like that. So please try to speak out some words regarding BSI also during the interview. Try to find out any reason, any ground or any question wherein you can put some words from BSI, because if a interviewer hears this word BSI from your mouth, then he or she will be extremely impressed. Trust me friend, they will be so much impressed that you already have some information regarding German government's regulations, and you have some information about the prevailing German government's IT security rules and regulations. BSI is most important friends. I have made multiple videos on this BSI also, not multiple but quite a few videos. I strongly recommend please go through them also. I will post links of those videos in description. So make sure that you understand BSI. One more important thing is like in NIST or in ISO 27001, we have several controls. For example, I think in ISO 27001 we have some 119 controls that are supposed to be set up for IT security in a typical organization. Likewise, BSI has given around 800 such points or controls, and they are known as Baustein. Please note this word Baustein. Baustein means, Bau means building and Stein means stone or blocks. So you can say these are building blocks. They are divided in multiple categories. I am not going to dive deep into this BSI thing, but you must be aware of this stuff before attending German interviews. In case if you speak out these terms like BSI or Baustein, trust me friends, you can be almost like 90% sure that you will be called for second round of interview. Take these words from my side, I can assure you on that. Now another question which is very typically asked is, let's say if you are a IT security analyst in an organization and you want to ensure that there are no foreign devices in your network. For example, if somebody has tried to or has put in kind of a Raspberry or kind of a Wi-Fi router or something in your network, and he or she is trying to sniff out data from you, how would you recognize these fremd devices? Fremd means foreign, so they might say fremd or they might even say foreign devices. So friends, here what they expect you to speak out is upon MAC address filtering first of all, whitelisting of MAC addresses, and that is the second point is IP binding with MAC addresses. So friends, this is a very common IT security control, that only recognized devices will be, that is only some devices which are already in the database will be recognized in the network, and in case if there is a foreign device, then the SIEM solution or maybe any antivirus or any control in place will raise an alert. So try to speak out or try to learn about MAC address whitelisting as well as IP binding with the MAC address. That is, a device which has IP binding will not work in any other network or any other location wherein the IP address changes. So these are practical aspects and you must be aware of these IT controls. Now two questions I would like to tell you which were asked more than 2 times in various interviews. One of them was, let's say if I were to implement a new policy in my organization and I want to make everybody aware in advance, right? So what are the steps I will be taking to implement a policy? It could be anything like, let's say if I want to implement a IT security policy or an update in the IT security policy saying that no more than 500 MB of data will be allowed from every user's login to transfer to the external world, let's say. So in this case you are going to implement a change first of all. So this change management, you should understand how to document this change management, any tickets that needs to be raised up. These all things you must speak out in such scenarios based questions. Apart from that, they might even ask you for downtime. What about downtime? So in that case you have to answer that I will be consulting with my production environment, or maybe like if there is any server restart required, then in that case I have to talk to all those people who are connected with that server. and then and only then you will find a suitable time, most likely in night time or maybe on weekends, to implement such changes. So these are again some questions which are practical based scenarios. One more question, as I said, was asked to me, that was in case if I am going to work as a IT security consultant for a company, and that company has, let's say, very less IT security controls in place as on today. So what will be the basic steps you will be following to guide them or implement new controls there? So the basic answer is very simple. You have to take up any framework. For example, in case if there is any framework is applicable, let's say ISO 27001 or NIST or PCI DSS or any such framework, then you have to go through the various controls of that framework. Apart from that, if there is any special requirement in that organization, let's say if it is from medical industry or maybe it's from European country, then it could be like GDPR, you have to speak out. So such things you have to be aware of various IT frameworks, and you try to speak out these frameworks at the time of your interview. Also, some basic questions may be asked that may be like what is the difference between risk, threats and vulnerabilities. Now these are pretty common terms we use in everyday life, but still many times we get confused if we were suddenly told to differentiate between these three terms. So try to just Google it, find out some examples as well. There are multiple examples, I don't remember right now, but these terms should be very clear. And of course many other terms like exploit, such terms are very important, and there could be somebody lying around in the interview room might be interested in knowing such very basic terms. However, it is not very often, and but still you must be aware of these terms. AAA, authentication, authorization and accounting. Very favorite question. Many times I have been asked this question. Mostly if somebody in the interview panel comes from auditing side, will be most likely interested in knowing these terms from you. So brush up this information and keep your sentences, your answers ready for these questions. Now recently there is a new rule from German government side that every organization which is engaged in critical services has to implement a IDS or IPS implementation, a solution that is like invariably it is a SIEM solution, has to be implemented by every organization. So that's why there is a huge suddenly there is a huge requirement of SIEM solutions implementers. Also, people who have worked on any type of SIEM solution, they might be in a very good chance to get a job here in Germany. So you should also brush up your knowledge about SIEM solutions, various use cases for example, or maybe like SOC analyst job roles, or of course these network intrusion systems like NIS, IPS, IDS. All these profiles have a huge demand, and you should brush up your information base before appearing for such interviews. Now training is a very vital part, very important part of any cyber security setup. So try to speak out something about training. In case if you have given any type of training to any of your employees, try to put it in your resume as well, that I have trained 10 people around me, or I have given training to 100 people. Also in Kali Linux, please just Google this. In Kali Linux there is a very good option to run a phishing campaign, wherein you can actually send phishing emails to various addresses and try to check if anybody of them responds. I will be soon making a dedicated video on this because I am still learning it, but such practical projects help a lot to understand that, to make the interviewers understand that you are really into cyber security. Also friends, I have made a video on honeypots. Now these honeypots are practical examples that clearly shows your expertization in IT security field. These honeypots, if you make and run and show it to the interviewers when you are on online interview session, or even when you are in face-to-face interview session, these are going to be the most pushing, or the thrust for your interview, for your success. So friends, please check out that video. I have shared the link as well. That honeypot is really helpful in you getting through at least initial rounds of interviews. Now the common ports like port 23, 21, 22, 443, 80. I also don't remember these ports, but I strongly recommend friends, at least before interview, brush up your knowledge base regarding these ports. Some of these very common ports must be on your fingertips. You should be able to recall these ports by the moment they are spoken out. So please brush up information on your ports as well, because ports also play a very vital role, and you may be asked a few questions regarding ports also. Like in case if there is no requirement of file transfer, then FTP should be totally stopped or blocked. So such questions regarding ports are very common. I frankly telling, I just brushed up all these ports information just before interview, and the day I got the contract letter, within a week I forgot all those ports. So, but still it plays a very vital role. A very common doubt in your mind may be like, is German skills mandatory for these interviews? So friends, to an extent it is really necessary. You are supposed to speak at least basic German, but in case if you are applying for a core technical jobs, or maybe if you are applying for international companies, they really don't expect you to speak out German at all, because most of the time everything is done in English language, at least all those technical jobs. I have never seen any German coding in Python. It's always in English. So English also works out, but it is definitely desired that if you have at least basic level of German, you can introduce yourself in German language. It really gives a strong push to your candidature. So this was all from my side, friends, regarding these typical German interviews. I strongly recommend, friends, in case if you have any doubts, please feel free to post them on YouTube comments. And also, in case if you have given interviews regarding cybersecurity recently in Germany, then I strongly recommend, friends, please post some of the general questions that you were asked. Maybe I'll collect all those typical questions and I'll make another video part 2 of these interview questions. So that was all from my side, friends. I hope that you like this video. Stay connected and stay tuned. See you and bye-bye.